Hello, today is July 6, 2024. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our calls, and then make some predictions. It's my trading plan for Monday, which is July 8th, 2024. Please remember, my calls can be wrong. Trade at your own risk. Please remember, the MEJT system gives targets. It doesn't give entries. One has to use other methods of technical analysis to do that. Look for the pattern with the early low. Friday, that's this. And Monday should also have the early low. We had the non-farm payrolls report come out. I said I don't like to predict what happens when that occurs, but we gave it a try anyway. We said we didn't have a guarantee of a drop from here, but a lot of things were lining up. We said it didn't mark the end of the bull market in any event. We said if we drop, the drop should be substantial, and the ideal thing would be to gap down Friday and keep dropping. Well, that didn't happen. We said if we didn't drop substantially and we didn't start dropping in a few days, I'd be far less enthusiastic about the short side. So we didn't get the drop. We went up. We haven't initiated any position. The plan was to wait for a trigger, which would be a sharp drop and then follow down. That never happened. We also said if the Marx indicators fail, they usually fail big time. Time hasn't run out yet, but if we keep going too much higher, they will fail, and according to his rules, they fail big time. Now we have another MEJT target generated from Friday's pattern, 55.45.97, and the rules call for that to print if we don't gap up smartly. Now here we have 5 targets within a few days which haven't printed. We've gone over our track record in the past. These are all the targets that didn't print over a 2-year period from 2022 to 2023. These already have printed. Here's the long-term track record of the system, and you can see we have an average of maybe 2 or 3 targets a year which don't print, and a good portion of the year every one of them prints. So 5 targets within a few days, that's just never stayed in the past. It doesn't mean they print tomorrow, doesn't mean they print anytime soon. There just isn't much precedence for these staying around forever. About twice a year I get a cluster of targets which fail to print in their preferred time frame. So this is looking like it's one of those clusters. We're not going to know for certain. These could all print Monday for all I know. But when there is a cluster, you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt, not risk a lot of money on them, if any, and just realize that in the past, no matter how impressive the rally off these clusters looks, we've always seen these numbers eventually at some time, which again doesn't have to be anytime soon. Early on, MEJT said ultimately higher price would print, which they certainly did. We got another buy signal later in the afternoon. We got more than the minimum, but from the morning this says this whole rally is false, going to retrace to this line. Let's look at some DeMark indicators. We finally got a complete bar 9 of his 9-13-9 sequential sell signal on the weekly chart. Now the longer the length of each bar, a week is long, the more significant the correction, if there is a correction, in terms of price. As we've said, there could be a correction in terms of time, there could be a correction in terms of price. It could also fail, and if it fails in grand style. We're already over the weekly Bollinger band here on the weekly chart. You can see we just don't stay over that Bollinger band very long on the weekly chart. So to have it fail in grand style here, I think is against the odds, but you never know. This is a bull market. Let's take a look at something that I use that isn't in DeMark's work. These are all TDST lines. I find these to be more helpful than his combo and sequential indicators. And when you take this TDST line here and you put a Fibonacci grid up to Friday's high, and you look at the 38.2 and 61.8 levels, you'll see TDST lines right at those levels. So on the weekly chart, I consider Friday's high to be a target of TDST lines that really go back years. That's the weekly chart. Let's take a look at the daily chart. Here's bar 13 of the combo cell. You can take this TDST line here, this TDST line here, 38.2%. We hit the number of that high within a fraction of a point. So we not only have sequential sell signals on the daily and the weekly, a combo on the daily. We also have Fibonacci targets of prior TDST lines, which go back months to years. Now, none of this means it has to drop, but it certainly is an area of strong resistance based on DeMark's work. Now, if you break through resistance, you normally break through it in grand style, and that can happen. But otherwise, resistance usually is going to hold. Hasn't held yet, that's for sure. It's just an area where you're probably going to have a big move one way or the other, and a big move way over the upper Bollinger Band is not impossible, but it certainly is not what usually happens. That's not the chart I want. We've broken through this trend line we've shown before. Any break has to be confirmed. If we go higher than that, that's a valid break. If we drop right from the open, that break doesn't count. I'm not happy with any of the counts I have, but at least there is a count, which is wave C. Exactly twice wave A. So if we do stop here, you can justify it. And there are a number of timing systems of other people which have been calling for Friday as a top, although frankly that looks pretty strong, and I'm reluctant to stand in front of moves like this. If we do drop, I wouldn't fight it, but I'm not going to take any position until that happens. Again, these are next week's patterns. Monday's pattern is really low regardless of where we open. There's a lower MEJT target. Unless we gap up smartly, the rules call for it to print. There's an increased risk of failure. About twice each year, the system generates a cluster of targets which don't print within their preferred time frames. In the past, these targets are printed eventually. That doesn't mean they have to print anytime soon. Friday's rally broke a trend line I consider significant. Like any break, it needs follow-through. Friday's rally nearly always follows through with Monday's open, so if we keep going higher, we likely violate. It would likely confirm that break and violate the stop loss of DeMark's sell signals. And his work says if that happens, we're going much higher. His work would say those signals fail in grand style. But if we drop sharply instead on Monday, that turns the tables. This is resistance, and either you break through or the resistance holds. It's not impossible that we drop Monday, because there are a number of unrelated timing systems of other people which have Friday as a top. Breadth still has not confirmed July's rally, and I still would like to see a reversal here, but that hasn't happened yet. Until it does, I'm keeping my powder dry. The timing of the late drop on Friday makes it very suspicious. The final 5 minutes of trading and first 15 minutes of futures trading, those aren't when serious money makes its move. And if that's a false move, we should gap and overtake that drop early Monday. But if it's the real thing and we continue lower, that gives that credibility. if in fact we do drop right from the open here and have a serious drop, if that happens, I have all these targets. The DeMark signals will probably work. The DeMark resistance will probably work. But just remember that if it fails in grand style. It's a pattern with the early low. I think if you wait for confirmation or rejection of this move, there probably is going to be a pretty big payoff. But until we get the rejection or the confirmation, I'm keeping my powder dry. It's the pattern with the early low, and that's today's call.